3, 2, and 1, go.
Hi, I'm Kellie Snow.
And I'm Vicky Jewel.
And we're doing Egypt.
Yep.
So,
Pecha Kucha.
Vicky and I chose Egypt because of its rich cultural background. We knew about Egypt's ancient past with its mummies and pyramids, but we wanted to explore really what makes Egypt tick. So we did a little bit of exploration, and here we go. We didn't tie these out. Okay.
Are there, okay.
And this is the flag of Egypt. And it's tricolor consisting of the 3 equal horizontal red, white, and black bands of the Arab liberation flag dating back to the Egyptian Revolution of 1952. The flag deals.
Oh,
Okay.
this is the map of Africa and Egypt before the British rule. This map is from 1885, which is 29 years before Egypt became a British protectorate. And before the British took over, you can obviously see that it was overlapped with Sudan and Nigerian borders. Actually, you can't really see it very well because it was kind of chaotic.
Okay, Egypt is bordered by Sudan to the south, Libya to the west, the Mediterranean Sea to the north, Israel to the northeast of Egypt, and the Red Sea to the direct east. The Suez Canal is between the Sinai Peninsula and the rest of Egypt and causes many disputes in Egypt's history.
In Egypt's ancient history existed a monarchy system. Their lives revolved around the Nile River and the gods. Most of all, Ra, the ancient god of sun. Egypt's culture and history are rich. They had established many systems before in their ancient history, which they built pyramids for the burial of the dead and irrigation through the Nile.
So the Muslim Brotherhood. It was started by Hassan al-Banna in 1928. During Banna's setup of the Muslim Brotherhood, he established many branches countrywide. Each branch had a school, a mosque, and a sporting club. This organization grew fast, and by the late 1940s, there was an estimated 500,000 members.
The Muslim Brotherhood's full name is the Society of the Muslim Brothers. It is a transitional Islamic political organization. It began as a religion and social movement, but it grew in violence and was later called a terrorist group. And that's a picture of the founder.
Okay, in the year of 1956, Jamal Abdel Nasser, he comes to power, but then he dies in 1970, and then after him, Sadat comes to power.
The tripartite invasion of Egypt by Britain and France and Israel occurred due to the nationalism of the Suez Canal in October 1956. This invasion created a war between Egypt, Britain, France, and Israel. A ceasefire is then declared in November.
Okay, so this right here is Anwar Sadat, and he comes into power in October 1970. He's assassinated on October 6th, 1981 in Cairo. And he was a military leader. A lot of presidents in Egypt were like some form of military leaders before they were presidents.
In 1979, Egypt and Israel, after having fought 4 wars since 1948, issued a formal peace treaty. It was signed by Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, and witnessed by President Jimmy Carter on the front lawn of the White House.
This treaty called for control of relations between the 2 states and the full removal by Israel of its armed forces and civilians from the Sinai Peninsula, which Israel had taken during the Six-Day War in 1967. Egypt provided Israeli shipped passage to the Suez Canal as a part of the treaty.
Hosni Mubarak took office October 14, 1981, and he ended his presidency on February 11, 2011. Mubarak was the 4th president of Egypt. Before Mubarak was a president, he was a career officer in the Egyptian Air Force. On April 13, 2011, he was detained for corruption of power.
Okay, so in July of 2009, the United States President Barack Obama makes a key speech in Cairo calling for a new beginning between the U.S. and the Muslim world. So in here you see Barack Obama and Mubarak
shaking hands and creating peace between the 2 worlds. Countries in protests on the Arab Spring were Tunisia, Algeria, Oman, Libya, Yemen, Syria, Morocco, and Egypt. Thousands of protesters gathered in the streets during this time in January of 2011, demanding that Mubarak resign from office. In February, he did resign and handed power to the Supreme Council of Armed Forces.
Okay, in April 2012, Egypt demanded a new president. The election ran between Morsi and Shafiq, but Morsi won. Mubarak was sentenced to life in prison. Happiness didn't last long because Morsi granted himself all-powerful and above the law. Later, he was overthrown.
In June 2012, the Muslim Brotherhood candidate Mohamed Morsi narrowly wins the presidential election. This year, Morsi had recently been ousted from presidency and charged with corruption of power. And interim president Adli Mansour had taken over until a permanent president can be elected.
Okay, Adli Mansour is a constitutional judge who was appointed years ago as an interim president by former ousted president Hosni Mubarak. Mansour was sworn in as the interim president in July of this year after President Morsi was ousted and placed under arrest.
An Egyptian court sentenced the Order of the Muslim Brotherhood and 682 supporters of the Brotherhood to death as a way to prevent potential protests and violence at the next election. 682 were sentenced to death, and certain Islamist alliances, including the Muslim Brotherhood, called on Egypt to protest again.
Okay, in January of this year, a riot occurred between the Egyptian police and Muslim Brotherhood supporters. 11 were killed and more than 52 were injured. So what does the future hold for the Muslim Brotherhood? When the month's president's election coming soon, the chief, he vows that he will put an end to the Muslim Brotherhood. He wins.
You want these?